I'm Liz Hirsch-Naftali, and welcome to another episode of Capital Coffee Connection. And I'm really excited because today we have an amazing guest who I will introduce very shortly. But I'd like to just remind everybody the purpose of this podcast is to meet with amazing elected leaders, but not to talk about politics or policy, rather to really talk about humanity and heart. And I'll add in there hope and home. Because I find that so many times people are so quick to just say, oh, he's a politician, oh, she's a politician, and not to really understand that these are amazing people who are dedicated and are doing this incredible work because they really care. So when you think about like the human genome and that everybody on this earth, 8 billion plus people, are 99.6% the same. And then you think, what is the 0.4% that brings them difference? And how do we actually make that difference something we celebrate and bring us together versus many times we find our differences and they tear us apart? So the purpose of this podcast is to really look into that and to actually have an opportunity to really get to know some pretty incredible people. One of the best things for me about being a parent is watching our kids be really inspired. And I have a son, he's an adult son now, but his whole life since he was very little, he was very passionate about soccer. And what I realized was that soccer sort of helped me to raise my son. So he would get up early and work out hard during the week. He would get up early on the weekends. His favorite team, Tottenham Hotspurs, Premier League, and they played in London, so he had to get up very early in LA. And then playing the sport, it just taught him so much about teamwork and about cooperation and about just that endless energy that you have to put into playing soccer. And I think those are the gifts that actually he carries through to his life today as a young adult. Because sometimes you can actually run around for 90 minutes and not score. And you can run around in 90 minutes, but it's really truly the art of the time that you're together and not necessarily the score, although we all like to win. Anyways, today I have a winner. And I have somebody that played a lot of soccer growing up. And he was a Division I college soccer player. And he'll tell us a little bit about that. But I'm going to introduce him as a congressperson. His name is Eric Swalwell. He is the congressperson from California's 14th district. He's been in the House since 2013. And I'll just give a quick list of the cities that you are in because I think it's interesting for people to know. So you're on the San Francisco Bay on the east side. And you have cities like Dublin, Pleasanton, Livermore, Hayward, Union City, Fremont, Castro Valley, and San Lorenzo. And so you really have a beautiful area, which is like suburban, city. I even think you have some wild turkeys running around from what I've
we have two
surmised.
Rodeos.
What do you have?
Two rodeos.
Two rodeos. You got a lot going. Anyways, Eric, welcome. And we're here to have coffee together. And Eric's having a nice coffee, and I'm having my oat milk cappuccino. So welcome, and thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you, Liz, for having me.
So we're going to go back to the beginning of Eric time, which isn't that long ago because Eric is young. But tell us, you were born in Iowa, but then you grew up in Northern California. And tell us a little bit about what it was like to be young growing up grew up in Dublin.
We moved around a lot.
Yeah.
Lived in about 13 different homes and went to 11 different schools before I graduated high school.
Wow.
And we landed in Dublin. And I remember playing soccer that everyone around us called it scrubbling.
Scrubbling.
Scrubbling, yeah, kind of as a like pejorative nickname. And that was because Dublin was this kind of crossroads town between Pleasanton, Danville, San Ramon, cities with a lot of wealth. And Dublin had, I would describe, low income and low expectations for the people that lived there. And my parents, we rented there when we first moved there. And we moved a lot, but something that always like united the family, even if we had to go to a new town, was sports. And so that was kind of a way to make friends quickly when you got pulled out of a school and moved somewhere new. And I have a Irish twin brother who's 11 months younger than me. And we were on the Dublin Little League together. And it was the major season. So if you have kids who played Little League, that's kind of, that's the Little League World Series. That's
the playoffs.
If you're good enough, you make that. And every year in Little League, we were kind of a 2-for-1 deal. If you have a sibling who's in the same age bracket as you. Like if you get drafted, they come with you.
Mm-hmm.
And that major season, when I was 12, 13, my little brother made the All-Star team, and I did not. And you can just imagine how crushing that is when you're the older brother and the little brother makes the All-Star team. And I remember going to my dad and saying, like how the hell could this happen? They drafted me. He came along because I got drafted on the team. And that's where my dad told me, son, it was actually the other way around. They drafted your brother, and you got put on the team because you were his brother.
Wow.
And it was just crushing for me. And my brother was great. I mean, he went on to like play varsity baseball and did very well. And his All-Star team went very far in the Little League World Series, like kind of playoffs. And so I was kind of left without a sport. And so for a year or so, my brothers also played soccer, and they needed someone to shoot on. And so I'd stand in front of like the bushes in our front yard, and I'd play goalkeeper. And I would just dive around and try and save their shots. Yeah. And the brother, Josh, the 11-month younger brother, said to me, why don't you just go play soccer? Like you like this, you're pretty good at it. And so at like 13, I played recreation soccer as a goalkeeper and loved it. And over the years, just kept moving up and up and up, and saw it by the time I was a sophomore in high school as a path to go to college.
And you did get, indeed, a scholarship.
I was fortunate that there was a player 1 year ahead of me on the team who was also a goalkeeper, and a very good goalkeeper. And he was a friend and mentor to me. His name was Chris Doyle. And he was chasing, that recruitment life and meeting with coaches, going to camps. And no one in my family had ever gone to college.
And no one knew how to give you the guidebook to doing that.
Right. So I borrowed his guidebook,
Yeah.
which like literally there's like a college recruitment book that was pretty expensive. And I would just use his book, and I would borrow his tripod and his video camera. And then I would give my mom instructions on like how to record. And then I'd have a good save. And then I'd be screaming from the sidelines, Mom, did you get that?
Yeah.
And she'd be like, oh, sorry, honey. I was talking to like Kathy or Susie. And you're like, no, Mom, focus. We're sending these to coaches. And so Chris was recruited. He played Division I. And it was a blueprint for me. Right. And so I was able to get recruited. I probably picked a college in a way that I'd never advise anyone to pick a college. One, I needed it to be paid for because we just didn't have the finances, for me to go to college otherwise. Two, I was competitive enough that I insisted on only looking at Division I schools. And three, I was impatient enough that I did not want to sit as a freshman. I wanted to go to a program where I could
get
play
on the field
as a freshman. And so there was one school in America that was going to pay for it, was Division I, and would let me play as a freshman. And that was Campbell University in Bowie's Creek, North Carolina. And so I went out to Campbell, played 2 years. Our non-conference games were against Duke and Carolina and Clemson and Wake. And so I was exposed to the best. And the best thing that happened to me, frankly, was at the end of my sophomore year, I was injured. And in about a 2-week period of time, broke both thumbs, which is any other position on the field,
gives you the chills.
Fine.
Yeah. You can't be a goalie.
Goalkeeper, not so fine. I thought the world was over. And a high school mentor and teacher called me and said, Eric, the world's not over. I know you could never see beyond the next soccer game, but why don't you apply to work for your member of Congress in Washington, D.C. as an intern for this upcoming summer? I didn't even know if I was a Republican or a Democrat. I knew my parents were Republicans, so that meant I probably had to be a Democrat because at that age, you just want to reflexively be the opposite.
Anything your parents are not, you're going to be.
And so I interviewed and found myself that summer in Washington, D.C. and loved it and never wanted to go back to soccer. And so I transferred to the University of Maryland and had to call my parents and say, Mom, Dad, that scholarship we had that paid for most of this? Well, I just got in as a transfer student to Maryland. I'm going to be able to keep this unpaid internship that I have on Capitol Hill, but I am now an out-of-state student, and we're going to have to find a way to pay for it.
Did you go and get jobs in addition?
Oh, yeah. I worked at Tortilla Coast, which is it was a Tex-Mex place right next to the Capitol. Mm-hmm. I worked at Washington Sports Club, which was a gym also next to the Capitol. So from 5 to 8 in the morning, I'd work at the sports club, and members of Congress would come in, and I'd often give them their towels and check them into their squash courts. And then I'd work the internship, do my classes. And then in the evening, I'd work at Tortilla Coast.
Oh,
and again,
my.
members would come in like between late votes. And a little, like, I guess, parlor game or parlor trick that I figured out was if you memorized their faces and knew their names, you could always get better tips. So, like, you'd be like, oh, Congressman Miller,
Yes,
so good to
you learned
see
how to
you.
do
Welcome. And it probably wouldn't surprise you that members of Congress are very easily flattered. And so
Yes.
that was just kind of my
You
way
look
to do it.
amazing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that was, and my parents, to their credit, like I was working minimum wage jobs. They had to take on a number of other jobs and overtime to make it work. And they did. And
Now, have your parents, I'm assuming they're still Republican, do they vote for you? I'm just curious.
after I was elected.
Because you're in their district, right?
No, so
Oh.
they were when I was elected in 2012.
Okay. Did they vote for you then?
I hope so.
Okay.
The best part of that campaign was my dad and I knocking on doors together.
Nice.
And I would take the even side of a street. He'd take the odd side. And I always would tell him, you open the conversation. If I hear you get someone who opens the door, I'll come across the street and close it. And almost every single time, my dad would say, to a voter, especially if it was a Republican voter, he would say, my son, he's a Democrat, but I think he's going to come around and be a Republican. And I'd have to run across the street and be like, Dad, no, that's not how it works, Dad. Like, I'm not going to be a Republican, sir.
Yeah.
I want to be upfront with you. Like, my dad still was holding out hope that I would be a Republican.
Listen, this is what we do with our kids. We want to help them. We want to do
course.
as much as we can. But then sometimes, they're just going to be who they are.
That's right.
Speaking of which, I think we could jump right into it because when I first met you, you had no children.
Yes.
And in the last 7 years, you and your wife, Brittany, have been very busy because you have 3 children.
We do.
How did that happen?
I was a single delinquent, no wife, no kids member of Congress for my first couple years. And I could work 25 hours a day and say yes to everything. And it so happened in the fall of 2015 that a couple that I had set up 10 years before reached out to me and said, are you still a single delinquent member of Congress? And if so, would you want to meet our friend Brittany? And so that couple who I set up, married, 3 kids of their own, introduced me to Brittany, who had moved from L.A. To the Bay Area. She worked in hotels. And what's so funny is that first date, I was flying back from D.C. It was during the late summer, early fall. And as you know, there's lightning storms all the time in D.C., and the date was supposed to be at like 6:30 on the Embarcadero at a restaurant I had picked. And the flight was going to land at 6, so I was already a little ambitious that I'd be able to make it on time. And I'm sitting on the tarmac at Dulles, and like each lightning strike, you're like, shit. Like that's 15 minutes you have to wait before the plane can take off because it has to be 15 minutes of no lightning. So like 4 or 5 strikes in, I keep moving the time to the right and to the right. And by the time I'd push it to like 8 o'clock, she just writes back and says, like, why don't we just reschedule this? And because I was single, delinquent, no wife, no kids, and would say yes to everything, I pathetically wrote back to her and I said, please don't reschedule. I'm not available for like 6 more weeks. Because like I just said yes to everything. And she's like, fine. It's a school night for her, but she'll wait. I finally made it there at 9:30.
Oh, wow.
And Liz, the one image I did not want her to have of me was like barreling in late, carrying an overnight bag. And there was a hotel next to the restaurant. And so I thought, you know what, I'm already late. I'm going to go to the hotel, pretend that I'm checking into the hotel, and just ask them if I can bag check my bag so she doesn't see me like
pathetically showing up with your luggage.
With the bag.
Yeah.
And so at the end of this great first date, she's called an Uber and I said, I'll get my own car too. But do you want to walk over with me to this hotel? I'm just going to grab my bag. And she was like, oh, this is the move, huh? The congressman with the bag at the hotel. She's like, do you do this every time? I'm like, no. I just needed, to get my bag. But that, I didn't want her to see me as I said, like just like this traveler who's always on the road.
Right.
And she'll say that she was completely duped because that's the lifestyle that she ended up marrying into. But we would be married. We'd be engaged about 6 months after that.
Wow.
Married 6 months after the engagement, and pregnant, and 3 kids within 5 years.
That's amazing. Yeah. So she truly liked you.
It was something different.
Just to wait till 9:30 at night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even for a good-looking congressperson, that's a little long.
And she'd never met a congressman until she met me. Like, she grew up in southern Indiana, and actually her family was very close with the Pence family.
Oh, wow. So she comes from a Republican family as
Very
well?
Republican family. And
they accepted you?
yes, of course.
Because you were already a leading Democrat at that point. So.
And her grandfather had been a pallbearer in Mike Pence's father's funeral. Mike
Wow.
Pence mowed her grandparents' lawn, and so she knew a little bit about politics, but she went to school for business, worked in hospitality, and just really didn't bother herself with politicians. And so I think to her this was more of just like, this will be a fun date to see like what a politician is like, and didn't expect that I would try and pursue it as hard as I did.
Yeah. But I want to ask two questions. One, I really love to know what it's like. How do you guys spend family time together? Like, what is, you try to get home, I'm assuming, to have dinner with them when you can. But how do you make, because obviously that is your priority, but you also have a commitment with work. So how do you balance work with the kids and with your wife?
It's incredibly hard. She just started her own business about 2 years ago, and she's trying to grow her business. She's on the road almost as often as I am. And Sunday nights, we always have these, oh shit moments where we realize there's like a gap in like who's going to cover what with the kids or get so-and-so to camp or to school. And so that's always fun, like the scheduling and sorting it out. But what we try and do is as much as possible to be down on the weekends. Just like my family growing up, and she comes from a family where her dad played Division I baseball at Indiana University and her sister played Division I volleyball. We're a sports family. And so the best piece of advice my father-in-law gave me was, in a sports family, if you do not actively get involved in your kids' sports, you're just going to be a bystander. And you're going to go to the games, and everyone else is going to know what's going on. And you're going to feel like a bystander.
Listen, I spent a lot of time on baseball, soccer stadiums, basketball, and I would not take back one moment of that. It could have been freezing, it could have been loud, it could have been the longest game, but those were the most important moments. Even when like my kids ran in the wrong direction on a basketball court, like at 5 years old because they wanted to play but they didn't know what they were doing. Those are moments you can never take back, and they're just beautifully laid in my heart.
So I've actively tried to not be a bystander, even if it means, showing up at like a 90-degree baseball practice in your suit and not as comfortable and looking awkward, but just to try and be there. So I do see sports just like the way that she and I both grew up separately as being a part of what we do. And then, we love to just all be in the kitchen together, cook, and say, hey, Alexa, play Taylor Swift. And we love to have like Taylor Swift dance parties.
While you're in the kitchen.
And then our kids now, all three of them, even the 21-month-old, can say Alexa and whatever they want it to play. And so the 21-month-old says...
She's a DJ.
Encanto, that's his. Alexa, Encanto. He wants Encanto.
That's
music. His favorite one.
Yeah.
My daughter wants Frozen.
Okay.
And my son, he's got kind of like his baseball walk-on songs, and so he's asking for those. So
what kind of music do you like to listen to?
Country. I love
You're
country
a country
music.
guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and but I do love Taylor Swift, and dads can be Swifties too.
Dads can be Swifties too, and we need Swifties from both sides, moms and dads.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But no, country music I think is what my wife and I both enjoy the most.
Yeah. If I were to say, what is the hardest part of, besides scheduling, what is the hardest part about being a parent? And it's not bad; it's just hard.
I would say just childcare with two parents working. And wanting to see your wife be successful. She's in such demand for what she does, and she's got such a niche in her business. But it kills me to see her turn down growth opportunities because of me. And if she had never met me, I mean, she would be like in a C-suite somewhere. Like the only thing that's held her back professionally is that she sacrificed herself, to be a congressional spouse.
Yeah.
And so that part just kills me because she's got her own talent.
But I imagine that part of her talent and part of her ability is that she has you as her supporter. And so there's a balance. And raising, there's always that myth you can't do. There's that thing, oh, I can be this, I can be that. It's really hard for both parents that are involved in raising kids to have all of their career. You could be at 10 more dinners. You could be maybe the head of 5 more committees, but you can't do it all because you've got these 3 children, which are the most important. And I imagine that she, while you may feel bad, she also feels the strength that you give her to do the work she does, which is pretty special.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But I've also learned that even with that mama bear gene, that I can figure out the childcare issue so that she can do what she needs to do for work. But it's going to kill her to be away from the kids. And it kills me, but she always says to me, it's different for me than you. She's like, I don't know how you can, be on the road for 3 or 4 days and it doesn't kill you. And she's like, I can't even be away from them for a day. And so I hate that, she even has to think about that and also try and grow a business and then deal with, in my job, there's
a lot to go.
There's sacrifices in time, and then just the flood of death threats that come her way, and she's got to deal with. Okay, you're going to have security here, here, and here now. Don't put the kids in the front yard, and it's just So honestly, gallows humor gets us through a lot of it, if that makes sense.
No, it
in
does.
a weird way, we just
and you dance in the kitchen to Taylor Swift, and that makes it work.
Yeah.
What is the best advice you ever received, and perhaps the worst advice?
The best advice I've ever received is don't chase a title, chase an issue. And so I wanted to move back after law school to where I grew up in Scruplin. And the mayor of Scruplin told me that the city was experiencing a renaissance and that they were attracting higher end development, and they were building out, and that I should come back and get involved. And I said, that's great. I'll come back. I'll run for the city council. I'll join you. And he was like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, he said, you're going to join the Arts Commission. I said, well, what about the Planning Commission? I can at least start there. He said, no, Arts Commission, learn the city, and then we'll think about it. So I did 2 years on the Arts Commission. Then I said, okay, I'm ready to run for city council. And again, he goes, no. Now you should go on the Planning Commission and learn how development works. And finally, after that 2 years, I ran for the city council. And his advice was, if you just chase an office and the title, there's a good chance you'll lose. And if you lose, there's a good chance you'll be so demoralized you won't want to go in to public service. And so I was able to learn kind of the issues that I cared about, and never thought that a congressional seat would be possible. And so I'd gotten interested in innovation and development and transportation, and as a prosecutor, gun safety. And so when the congressional seat came through redistricting and a 40-year incumbent got moved into our area, I had not been trying to plot a path to Congress because I probably would have failed. And instead it just gave me an opportunity to run on the issues. And so the advice I give to young people is who want to run for Congress, who want to run for a mayor or whatever, is find the issues you care about, and those issues will lead you to the right office. If you do it the other way around, you may lose, you'll probably lose, and worst of all, you'll probably never want to serve again. Worst advice...
And not enjoy it.
Yeah. I think the worst advice has been to... this idea that you have to be a young man in a hurry. I heard that phrase, a lot.
That's terrible.
That you have to meet the expectations game.
Yeah.
And I think that's in part why I ran for president in 2020. Was I know that I was running on the issues of gun violence, but I also felt this pressure of you get elected at 31, and you do the Russia investigation, and people start to say you have to do this. This is your moment. There's no such. I don't believe in that now, and I don't regret running, but I do believe there's something to be said about patience and experience and knowledge, and watching Speaker Pelosi and others who have, she didn't go into public service until after her 5 kids were all out of the house, and I think she was nearly 50 years old. There's something to be said for that. And so I don't listen to anyone now who says this is your moment. You have to strike.
Nope. I get it.
And she gave me the best advice once. She said, Eric, in public service, once a threat, always a star. So don't feel like you have, if you do something else or step out of, the public spotlight or public service, that you're not going to be relevant. And I think we put so much pressure on ourselves. And so it's liberating to think
Part of
about
that
it
does
way.
come with age. You need to go through the process.
That's right.
Okay, now we're going to switch and have some fun questions, and you can just give a simple answer or you can tell why, but they're more like
Sure.
not speed dating, but speed questioning. Stranded on a desert island, what meal would love to see sitting there waiting for you?
Johnny's Donuts Maple Bar. Johnny's Donuts is in Dublin.
Yeah.
And despite that renaissance that's happened, and it's now, we don't call it Scrubble anymore. They have a Whole Foods there. My favorite place to go is still Johnny's Donuts. I'll call them in the morning to see if they still have maple bars. I get 2, and I know I shouldn't get 2, but they're so damn good.
Well, you're still young enough perhaps for 2.
Yeah.
You told me already what your favorite music is, but let's say you're out for a run. What are you going to listen to? Because country music doesn't do it.
I have stumbled into a gangster rap, the 90s.
Yeah.
Reliving Dr. Dre, Eazy-E, Ghetto Boys. I don't know why, but that's just kind of what
But it's great to run to.
It's great to run to.
Yeah. Do you have time to run still?
Yeah,
Okay.
I run every day. That's
Good.
the one time where I can
yourself.
it's therapeutic, I would say.
Yeah. If you have to pick one household chore, what's your favorite chore?
I love vacuuming and mopping, and just
Like clean floors?
Yeah, we do it every night because and that's also part of the family routine with 3 kids is just cleaning up. We just believe that if you don't do it, it'll just get worse and worse and worse.
I agree.
So we all have a routine, and the 6-year-old, we're trying to fit him into the routine now. So he's got
some
more to do.
He can be part of the routine.
But I do the vacuuming with the AirPods in, and you know. Yeah.
I love it. If you could travel to one place in the world that you've never been, what would that place be?
Been dying to get to Kenya.
Kenya.
Yeah.
You need to wait a few years when your kids are a little older, because
Yeah.
that's a trip that's
Is
really
that right?
special with your kids.
Yeah.
I did it with mine. They were a lot older, but it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But I think going to see that experience with your kids is,
Yeah.
is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to play this little game called Kiss, Marry, Trash. Some people know it as different, but that's the way I call it. And you basically, I'm going to say 3 things, and you say what you want to kiss, what you want to marry, what you want to trash. You can just say them. You can give us a reason why.
Yep.
But they're all softballs. They're
Good,
easy ones.
good.
Okay, first one, summer, spring, winter.
Kiss, spring, marry, summer, trash, winter.
Okay. I assume you know what a cold, snowy winter feels like.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Iowa boy. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have time to relax, which between everything, I'm not sure you have too much time, would it be you have Netflix, reading, meditating?
No, not. I don't even know what meditating is. It would definitely be Netflix. Yeah.
You'd marry
Yeah.
Netflix?
Yeah. So marry Netflix, kiss reading,
And
trash meditating.
yeah.
And I've been following Breakpoint. I don't know if it's on Netflix. It's a tennis doc. It's kind of like
I've heard of it. I
the
haven't
folks
seen
who did
it.
F1.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So there's all these new docs on different sports that you don't know too much about. So I've been that's kind of my can't fall asleep.
Go to.
How do you relax?
Yeah. There's some pretty impressive and
Yeah.
inspiring folks out
That's right.
there. Yeah. You may have already answered a little bit earlier with food, but breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah. Kiss, breakfast, marry, dinner, trash, lunch.
Okay. Foods, Mexican, Japanese, Italian.
Kiss, Italian,
Mm-hmm.
marry, Mexican. I hate to say this. I love Japanese, but
Okay, but it's third. You
Yeah.
don't have to trash. You can just say third.
Yeah,
Okay.
third.
Pastas, 3 of them. Penne, spaghetti, or fusilli.
Yeah, fusilli number 1.
So that's your marry.
Yeah, absolutely. And then kiss, spaghetti, and sorry, penne.
Trash penny.
Yeah,
And last,
these are easy.
these are easy. I know, but they're kind of
Yeah.
fun ones.
Yeah.
Okay, but this one I didn't put soccer in there. And by the way, do you call soccer or football? Because if you're the European version, I just wondered which one is to you, football or soccer?
Yeah, I just call it soccer.
You call it soccer.
Yeah.
Okay. My son, Kobe, football.
Yeah, football.
Yeah. And when I say soccer, he's like, Mom.
Yeah, and my two oldest speak Spanish, and the youngest goes to a Spanish daycare, and they call it football.
Football,
Yeah.
Last one, basketball, baseball, or football with 2 O's.
Yeah. Basketball, football, baseball.
Okay.
To watch, yeah. Go Dubs, go Warriors. This is our year.
Yes.
We
Okay.
got Chris Paul. Sorry,
Okay.
LA.
Let's see how it goes. We'll talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. My last piece. I'd love to know what you believe joy is, how you have joy, what joy is for you, and how perhaps you spread joy in your life.
Joy and happiness are not the same thing.
Right.
And I'm learning that more and more. And so to me, joy is seeing like the sacrifice, the accumulation of like sacrifice and patience like pay off. And so I see it mostly in my children, where like you teach them something or you expose them to something, and then to see that they're enjoying something. So like joy was watching my son after 2 years, trying to teach him to ride a bike. And then we were on vacation last week, and he and I could ride bikes all over together. Like that was joy.
That's joy.
Yeah.
How do you feel people can share their joy or spread joy so that others can feel it? People always feel when there's a negative energy, but how do you spread a positive energy? And it might not be, it's something when you feel joy that then you're able to share with others.
Yeah, it's sharing your joy, but also seeing in others like what is the obstacle for their joy, and just playing a small part in helping them, putting a couple bricks down, for their path. That's also fulfilling for me. That's joy.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's a perfect way for us to end. And thank you for sharing your life. And you have a young life, but you've done a lot, and you will continue to. And thank you. Hi, it's Liz. Please join me every Tuesday for coffee to talk about heart and humanity with our elected leaders. Ciao.